for Catalyst. I'm really proud to be standing up here today. A partnership which has endured 10 years. That is a long time for all of us, and we're so proud to still be a part of the program. So from very determined beginnings, the numbers fluctuate. I hear 14 original growers, 19, some say 17. Interested to know, just a show of hands, who was here for the very first forum? Quite a few of you. Wow, quite a few. You're still here, that's a good sign. And whose first forum is it this year? Oh wow, that's impressive actually. Okay, that's so, I mean, I think we actually sometimes forget when we talk about the numbers, and we've just heard all this data and numbers over the last 2 days, we don't really take it in what it all means and where we've actually come from and where we are now, which is just colossal. I think I can't stand here. I wasn't here 10 years ago, but I look around the room to the people, Jerry, Tony, so many of you, and you were, and I know, I just want to say for a second, incredible where we've come today. So that's fantastic. We often get asked as well, why is Coca-Cola involved? What is the link here? And I think most of you know, but I just wanted to kind of re-emphasise the beginnings. So in 2007, the company did set a very big, ambitious goal globally, and that was to return to communities the exact same amount of water that we use in our beverages by 2020. So it meant for every drop that we use, we had to give one back. And so to meet this goal, we knew that we needed to work with local community projects that support water conservation. So we partnered with WWF globally and here in Australia, and the rest, they say, is history. Your hard work has led to over 180 billion litres of water flowing into the reef being improved. And I'm proud to say from a Coca-Cola Foundation perspective, we've now contributed over $5 million to Catalyst since it began. And I'm also not overemphasising when I say that Catalyst globally really is regarded as a world-leading partnership. It truly is, and that's huge in terms of how Coca-Cola sees this program. And it delivers, what's incredible about it to all of us is it delivers both on environmental outcomes and crucially for all of us here, it delivers on business outcomes. That's why we're all, that's a key part of why we're still here today. 10 years of a continuous partnership is a true testament to the program and what has made that so successful and so unique. It's not just the players who are involved, but it's you, the growers, who are at the heart of this program, and you continue to push innovation and improvement when it's been so much easier, I'm sure, to walk away. And that energy and that passion and that is just infectious, and you can, everyone's talking about that positivity in the room, but you can feel it because we've got the cream of the crop in this room today. Excuse the pun, sorry about that. And from day one, Coca-Cola has been brought into that process, so we thank you for always welcoming us. And as you know, last year we also invited a group of growers into our offices, which we've heard a bit about over the last couple of days. I'm not going to talk about the league at all. But why we did do that is that we also wanted the rest of our business to actually better understand the project and why we continue to stay involved. It was a fantastic opportunity to profile the program within our business, especially with our bottling partner, Coca-Cola Amatil, and for their leadership to really understand the value of this program. We were able to demonstrate what the program continues to achieve for water sustainability and also where the program is heading for sustainable farming practices. Now, one of the key parts of this conversation was learning more around where our business is heading with sustainable ingredients. Now, I don't represent Coca-Cola Amatil, but obviously they are a key partner in all of this because they buy the sugar. I'm pleased to say from this year onwards, Amatil has tendered for 100% sustainable sugar supply in Australia out to 2020. That is going to be a major indicator for sustainable sugar supply for the company and the industry as a whole. And it also puts you growers, the Catalyst growers, in a strong position to lead the field and continue to raise the bar with sustainable practices. Another thing we've mentioned is that you might be aware that our BU president, Roberto Mackay, or Bob, who was a long-time supporter of the program, has moved on. He's left Australia to a very big job running Coca-Cola Latin America. Pretty big job for him. And it's a little bit of a bittersweet moment for the Project Catalyst as well, because most of you would know that Roberto was a huge advocate of the program and you, the growers. I'm pleased to announce we have a new president, a guy called Vamsi Mohan. And he is going to be keen to learn more and meet many of you over the coming months. Vamsi is born and educated in India. He comes to us from Southeast Asia, where he was running the regional bottling operation. He's been with the business for about 20 years. He's a big cricket fan, I will say. Does not have a league team to support yet. I don't know how much he knows about league, but we'll find out about that. So obviously 10 years, it's a huge milestone for all of us. And this year as partners, we'll certainly be making sure, as we always do, but especially this year, that your stories are recognised and they continue to be heard. And we always have to challenge ourselves on this. This includes reaching different audiences in different ways, and that can be through reaching younger audiences through social media, or making sure politicians know about us, both in Canberra and in Queensland, and they're aware of the significance and the results of the program. That's truly important. And where to from here? Get asked that a lot. I think fair to say the job's not done yet by any means. I think that every year the momentum and the energy increases. I think this is our biggest forum yet. So that's incredible. And just like the trials themselves, you guys are always pushing. It doesn't stop. The same goes for the program. We need to continue to evolve the program. We need to be agile and consider where we were back in 2009, we're in a different place now, and that's going to be, there's some really exciting opportunities, but we want to also ensure that the program itself has evolved and Project Catalyst has a sustainable long-term future in a way that will lead innovation in sugarcane. So before I wrap up, I just want to say, again, a massive thank you to all the project partners involved and you, the growers, who make the program what it is today. Without you, none of this would be possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So now we're just going to go back to what we went to before our lunch break. We're going to just have a wrap-up of the group discussions and the panel discussions. So that'll be facilitated by Craig and Andrew. So they'll have some roving mics, so if anyone needs to contribute or ask any questions. So we'll do that next.
Can I have my 4 volunteers that ran the workshops? Please come out the front of the S. Lawrence volunteered. Matt. Here comes Matt. Come on, don't be shy. One, two. Oh, and Andrew. Yeah, I forgot about Andrew's. Sorry, Andrew. Well, since Andrew's got the mic, you've done something different with your hair, Jason. Your voice hasn't changed, though. Righto, give us a quick couple of minute wrap of you were looking at future directions.
I was indeed, Craig. So the session which I convened was looking at future directions. We honed that down to future directions for the project rather than future directions for the industry. And to make my workload easier, I just set 2 questions for each table to answer. And they had 15 minutes to do it. And really it was 2 fundamental questions. First one was, what is the project doing well? Second question was, what could we do better or what could we change? And so we've had some fantastic feedback. We had 7 or 8 tables. I'm not going to read through all of the results, but what I'd like to do is give you a sense of the recurring themes. And this may actually be themes which you have already, or some of the things you've already put through to us in the questionnaires. We didn't have the benefit of looking at those questionnaire results before doing this. But some of the things that came through in that are, so what are we doing well? So I'd like to run through some of the things which we heard time and time again from each of the tables. They are things like networking, the opportunity to be with not just other growers, but other people in the industry, experts, people from organisations such as WWF, some of the suppliers and the like. So that was a really big one. That was a recurring theme through all of the tables. The other one was specifically access to experts. That we heard time and time again. Probably most importantly, the heart and soul of the project, innovation. Some of the other feedback, growers at the centre, it being grower-led, providing your input, what you're seeking. Again, we heard time and time again. Another one which I think is really important and something which I've heard time and time again from individuals I've talked to at this forum and previous forums is around it's a positive environment and something which certainly I think we all take note of that and we all really appreciate how important that is. So they're just a handful of some of the things we're doing well. By no means all of them, but we'll write all this up and if need be, circulate it. The other is what could we be doing better? We had a number of things here and some of the recurring themes were around, a lot was around communications. How can we use the body of knowledge that we've got, the results and various other things, and communicate that better out to a wider audience, but also possibly communicate it better amongst ourselves. This is the only time of the year we get together, but there may be ways that we can actually better facilitate the information that has come through the trials and the other work that's happening and circulate that. So that was one of the key things which came out of that. And also easy access to the results. I might leave it there because I think a lot of the things were really around communicating the successes of the project. So, Craig, I'll hand on to the next person.
Or are there any quick questions for Andrew?
Any quick questions for Andrew?
Okay, Lawrence. Got to be
okay.
quick.
I had the workshop on approaches to record keeping for farm management, phones, apps, programs, and online resources. We had a fairly large room full of people. Now, what we did initially is we actually started with Mick Quirk giving us a bit about the importance from a BMP perspective, and that came up in our workshops that we do need to have records as growers, and we don't do it well, but we need to collect records because, one, for BMP compliance, we're also going to see Bonsucro coming as well. So we need to have that data. We also had two brief presenters from SST being Bailey Shivers and Brian Granshaw from Bailey's from SST, and yeah, Brian's from Vantage, and they spoke about some programs, what they have on offer. And then we had a service provider in Carissa Rickson at Traps Consulting saying the importance and how she and her clients work together. In our workshop, we gave 3 questions, and the 3 questions is keep it simple options and getting the best use of data by the industry. The second question is how to make farm data accessible and protected at the same time. And the third question is how can we collect data once and use it many times. Probably the one that came through, and it came through on a few tables, was that we've actually got different people on different places on the spectrum. We've got those who want to collect full digital and doing everything digitally, and then we've got those who still want to collect paper. Now we need to be able to accommodate for both. Those who are collecting paper, we still need their data. Their data is valuable, and how do we get their data into systems that we can base industry decisions and support upon. The other one that came through is, yeah, we're collecting all this data, especially for BMP, but it needs to have a clear link to yield, what our yields are on our farm, and our productivity on the farm, because that way we can reanalyse it and look at it and use it in basing our decisions upon to go forward. We looked at formats of data and how we get different data formats. There's lots of programs out there. But what we needed is one way that everyone could share data. And one of the ideas was, could we all share shape files? And we could move that data to whatever platform, whatever it may be, but everyone has a common platform or language that we can all work off. In that, there was lots of suggestions of ways in which we could get apps and make it visually inviting and stuff like that. Everything come back, it has to be easy and accessible to people to be able to use. in summing up, we actually asked the question, I think Ian Davies asked the question, is how many people own GPSs? And I think let's all raise our hand. Who has a GPS and uses it? So we got lots of people in this room who use GPS. How many people can actually get the data out of their GPS back into their farm decisions? Not many. So we don't do that very well. In our workshop, we only had 3. So one of the take-home messages is we need, as an industry, to really understand how to get that data out and add value to that GPS that we've bought and use that. And that's probably a message for our GPS providers is it's just don't sell us the box of wires and hydraulic pieces. We actually need some follow-up. Also for people like Dominic Henderson and people like that to fund courses where we can actually have tools or video clips or things like that to actually allow people to know how to get the next thing out of their GPS and to use that data on a different level. So that might be one suggestion. So I think that pretty much covers, there was a lot of discussion on how to get data and share it. I think people are realising that sharing is important and that's how we're going to get the value. So that's pretty much it from me.
Outstanding. Any quick questions for Laura? Oh, God, here we go.
Yeah,
oh, comment.
I suppose the question is, for me, is how many people that own GPSs that actually get back in touch with the people that provide that GPS for help and
Raise
support?
your hand to Brian's question. Who rings back?
So when you've bought a system, how many people ring back? Okay.
Not many. So
Not many.
use your contacts of the person who you bought the GPS with because they sold you the product.
How many people have to ring back because it didn't work the first time? Yeah, I thought so.
Lots. Thanks, Craig.
Okay, so I facilitated the succession planning workshop and I didn't know much about it, but I did learn a lot. So it was a really good discussion and people really opened up about their experiences. One thing that was highlighted was the importance of succession planning, you know, for the ongoing continuation of good agricultural businesses. And so the objective, you know, how can Project Catalyst help with farm succession planning and ensure the continuation of these businesses? So discussions were had around the issues faced and some of the different options. So some of the problems was older farmers, you know, they've run their farm for their whole life and might not, you know life without farming. 2, around timing. You know, when do farmers actually leave the farm? And that was a big one. 3, unexpected deaths without having a plan in place. 4, obviously, a very difficult issue, and it can be very emotional. Some of the growers were saying, you know, it's one of the hardest jobs on the farm. And this is because, you know, farms have generally been in families for generations. And different family members have different objectives. Another problem, you know, at the end of the day, parents need an income, you know, when they leave their farm and retire. And also the next generation, you know, needs certainty to set their plans in place for their own families. And also situations can change over time and goalposts can change. So some of the steps to tackle the problems and the issues, a lot of the feedback was around starting the discussions very early and getting a will and a succession plan in place. There are examples about when it was left too late and the situation became very difficult and farms became, you know, unviable. Another step to tackle it, obviously ensure the carryover of knowledge about farming to the next generation. Also seek expert advice to suit individual circumstances. So People shared experiences about where they have sought advice. Another one, develop a plan that provides parents with a suitable retirement strategy after they retire and security for the next generation. And also, you know, plans might need to be reviewed over time to accommodate changes. And also, there are government grants available of $2,500 to support succession planning. Okay, so recommendations about, you know, what can Project Catalyst do to help with farm succession planning. You know, there was talk about succession planning is already a good fit, you know, or is actually a very good fit for Project Catalyst, as, you know, they both address long-term sustainability in terms of farm viability, passing on valuable knowledge onto the next generations. Some people suggested that it needs to be talked about continuously in Project Catalyst. There was a lot of talk about providing expert advice on succession planning, you know, such as accountants, lawyers, financial planners, preferably using specialists that, you know, specialists in agricultural succession planning. Also, just to continue to share ideas, you know, having farmers and other family members talk about their own experiences with plans that they have already put in place. Also, encouraging the old and young to talk about these issues. You know, hearing from farmers that have retired to get an understanding of how their lives have changed since they stopped farming, since they retired, and activities that they do after retirement. And focus some talks on business planning. So yeah, that's and also, you know, a big thank you to everyone who contributed, because yeah, it was a really good discussion. Okay, so I'll pass it on.
Any questions for Matt as he passes it over to Jason? No questions? Hit it, Jason.
The innovation incubator. So I don't know why I'm up here, but anyway. Okay, so what we talked about was we talked about where we want to be in the next 5 years. So we know where we've came. See what we could bring to Catalyst in the future. So we had some weird and wacky ideas, definitely to try, but people were talking about things like bioreactors, automation, trying to find different income streams from canes, so not necessarily just harvesting it, sending it straight to the mill, but in the Burdekin especially using the trash and the tops and how we can make extra profit off them. What else did we talk about? Education was a big thing, so I don't know whether Project Catalyst can maybe start trying to feed some information back into schools to try and so they don't play the blame game, I guess. Like, I've heard stories of kids come home and say, "Dad, you're killing the reef. Like, what are you doing?" But, you know, if we can get in there and educate those kids that, you know, you guys aren't the bad guys, maybe. We talked a lot about carbon banking and opportunities for incentives and that kind of thing. We talked about looking at the whole farm, like optimisation, so not just one element, but everything needs to work together to make, we need to just look at the whole picture. We talked about turbines or whirlpools in cylinders to try and generate electricity for the farm, so that was interesting. And just trying to use other power sources to generate electricity, so not relying off the main grid, like whether it's solar or like that other kind of thing. Genetically modified cane was mentioned, so a few growers were interested in that. Growing cane in hydroponics. Microsensors, so heaps and heaps of little different sensors placed all over the farm to and phosphorus and dissolved oxygen, anything, like basically just thousands of sensors all pulled together to try and get information back to the growers and their agronomists to try and make better decisions. We talked about burying organic matter deeply to boost organic carbon. We talked about CCS testing, so trying to get real-time CCS results before we send it to the mill. We talked a lot about rotation crops and their role into the farming system. And yield maps. We talked about yield maps and how we don't have them, and that would be nice to go have them in the future. And then to finish up, we sort of mentioned sort of like robotics and drones and that kind of thing. So I don't know, maybe Project Catalyst can sponsor a few robots for the cane farmers, but that was about it.
Excellent. So any more questions to Alice or any of the others? Like Jason? Any questions? In wrapping that up, you'll notice in your packs there's information about the members only section of the website. Hopefully that guides you through registering on the website as a member and get you access to the discussion section. The summaries from these I'm going to be uploading to that, and hope to have other comments and... Yes.
Craig, I got one advertisement. We forgot to mention yesterday because we ran out of time, but for those who are travelling north tomorrow at 10 o'clock, if you come to the HCPSL office at Fairford Road, we're happy to take you out. Megan will be there to meet with you to have a look at the mixed fallow trial that we've got in the Herbert at the moment.
Sorry, and the grower contacts list that's normally in the back of the magazine, that will only be accessible through that members only section on the website. If anybody needs to talk to us about whether they're on that or what details we put on that, could they please get back to Kim or myself in the next week?
Okay, and also just a reminder to subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you have access to all of the brilliant videos that get done, not just during the forum, but leading up to the forum as well. So you just look up Project Catalyst on YouTube, and then you can just click subscribe to the channel. So next we're going to have a talk on global standards and sustainable sugar. That's going to be facilitated by Rob Coco, Michael Quirk and Terry Granshaw. Uh-oh.
There's a phone. So, can you hear me up the back? Yeah, that's working. Very good. So we are in the homeward straight here. I just wanted to give some context to this session. We just thought we meet once a year. Here's an opportunity just to give you an update on what's happening in the BMP world, what's happening in Bon Sucre world, and to give you an opportunity to ask some questions. So it's just an update session, and after we've had our two presenters, you can ask some questions of them as they, should you have any queries about it. So if I could call Mick Quirk up first. So Mick is probably known by every single person in this room, would be my guess. Mick is the BMP Program Manager, and he's going to give an update on the BMP.
I broke my digital pen. What's it? This one? Thanks to the organisers for the invitation to present to you on BMP. I'm going to talk for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to hand it over to Terry Granshaw so you hear from someone who's actually delivering the program in the district. And of course Terry likes to talk more than I do, apparently. So with our program, it's been going for a few years. We've got 70% of the cane area in Queensland managed by growers who've done the self-assessment in our core modules, and over 16% of the cane area has been accredited in those modules. Now, the uptake's been variable across Queensland. The highest uptake, as you would expect, is in the wet tropics, and a couple of those districts are now approaching 50% of their district area accredited. So they're getting quite a good story to tell about, recognition of the practices that have changed over time and their plans to make further improvements. So that's a very good thing. We're going into a new 4-year phase of delivery, and we're discussing with organisations and the Queensland Government what that might look like. So we're very receptive, we're very welcoming to any ideas and suggestions of how we should refine things and make things better for growers who participate. So one of our key themes is about providing growers with a way to set the record straight. That is, to get recognition for what they've achieved in the past and to keep updating that as they continue to improve into the future. So that's been almost our total focus, getting people through the assessment and accreditation stages, and also at the same time trying to link those growers to services they could use to look at reviewing their practices and changing practices in the future. In this next phase, we're going to have just as much emphasis, if not more, on helping growers identify and implement better practices. So part of that will be, a lot of that will be linking to programs like Catalyst and other research and innovation programs to keep growers in contact with the options they have to further improve. Terry will get up shortly to talk about how that's been working, that sort of process in the Burdekin. But before I go there, just a quick talk on update on where we are in terms of sustainable sugar. There will be any number of requirements potentially or opportunities for growers to become certified at some standard to meet requirements for sustainable sugar, biofuels, potentially reef credits, which is going to be trialled in the wet tropics in the next 6 to 12 months. So there's lots of opportunities, other opportunities that we can use the Smart Cane BMP program for, in addition to the stewardship productivity emphasis, to try and meet the requirements of these other programs. We've gone to some effort to ensure that we now cover all the indicators that Bonsucro covers, so that full alignment has been recognised. At the same time, Bonsucro has recognised that they don't align with us in the sense that our agronomic scope is much wider. So it's not a two-way interaction at this stage. What we would like to achieve, and working with Bonsucro to do this, is to develop a single audit process that will cover off on both Bonsucro and BMP requirements. We're hoping to, we are planning to have Bonsucro staff here in April, May to trial that process on farm, most likely in probably Mackay and Burdekin districts. As you know, even in the sustainable sugar area, there's lots of other programs around, lots of other end users, all of which have their own sustainability criteria. So there are multiple pathways even to get to sustainable sugar, and we want to make sure that they can all use BMP as a basis for going forward, so not duplicating effort. We're not having 17 audits for 17 different programs. You add to that the sustainability requirement for feedstock going into biofuels and the potential, for green collar working on the reef credits, then we do need to ensure as an industry program we use it for as many outcomes as possible and provide growers with the opportunity to do one accreditation program to meet an array of outcomes. So into the future, I would invite Catalyst growers, if you're not already involved, to get involved in the program. Help set the record straight, get acknowledgement for where you're at. It's a step program, so there are different levels. So there is the potential, as you already have got to or start to exceed those levels, for that to be recognised. And we're also very keen to have the ideas and innovations from Catalyst growers being spread, the good word being spread to the wider majority of growers in Queensland. And we're happy to be part of that process. So I'll hand over to Terry, just to give you a quick-ish look at how things run in the Burdekin.
Thanks, Mick. Terry Granshaw, work for Burdekin Productivity Services and the Smart Cane BMP facilitator for the Burdekin. I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into the way my mind works and the way the BMP program works, the reasons why I love it. And I'll answer some questions that often, well, probably the most common questions that always get asked to me. So before I start, I just want to say, when I first started this job, I was farming for 30 years, obviously you heard from my brother, and we've always been told to be able to try and come up with a solution. And that's what I do, and I know my brother does it as well. We're very passionate about agriculture. And there's always a way to work something out. There's always a way to do something. And this program has taught me a lot, because I'm on the other side. I've always been a farmer. All of a sudden, I'm in the extension roles. And you know what? Some of the guys in extension, they do it pretty tough too. It's not as simple as what people might think. There's a lot more, there's politics, there's everything. And you know what? I don't like it myself, that part of it, but I love farming, and I love the one-on-one component of this program, and that's where I get off. So, the first week that I started the job, Rob took me down to Mackay to meet John Agnew. And I think we had like a 3-hour meeting about BMP. And I drove home and I was pretty quiet with Rob. And that night I said to my wife, what the hell have I done? There's not one person accredited. This is 3 years ago to the day nearly. And I'm like, what am I doing here? But I'm a positive person, and I turned it around and I thought, you know what? I'll make this happen. I'll make it work. So, over the time, I think not just myself, BPS, pharmacists, everyone, DAF, you know, the city, all these people, Des, I love that word, Des. You'd be surprised. All these people are trying to help. We're not here to try and hinder it. We're not here to try and make your life hard. We're actually trying to help. So, I'll talk about BMP. You register it. Everyone knows that. Get on there and register. It's really simple. You log in, register. Nothing to say about that. This part here is a self-assessment. So I started doing these one-on-one, and I found that it's taking way too much time. And I wasn't getting out of it what I'd hoped to get out of it. So the self-assessment is basically like a benchmarking tool. So we have a workshop every fortnight now, and I get 5 to 10 growers every time. And it's really satisfying. We'll get growers come in there and, I don't want to do this, carry on, or everything else. But when they leave, I haven't had one grower say that they didn't get anything out of it. And I really enjoy that. So just the talk between the growers and how they do things differently. It's probably a bit easy for me because I can understand. I understand what they're talking about. I know where they're going through. I know the different soil types. And I've sort of, from this grey hair, I've been there and done it a bit. So that workshop does not get you a certificate. The amount of phone calls that I've had, I did the workshop, I'm accredited. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. That's the second step of getting it. Accreditation, I'll talk a bit more right now. So these are the questions I get asked. Do I need an EM map? No, you don't. But if you've got one, awesome. Supply it. Do I need soil maps? Yeah, you do. Do I need a prescription map? No. Got one? Pass it on. It's awesome. Do I need yield maps? No, but I wish you did. Do I need soil tests and water tests? Yes, you do. That is to become accredited at industry standard. If you want to become accredited at above industry standard, which is another step, you need all of that. Do I need satellite imagery? It's pretty awesome. I like it. No, you don't need it to become accredited. But if you want to become above industry standard, that's the sort of stuff we want to see. And they're all tools. They're all tools that we've all been talking about. If you overlay them across each other, they can tell you really good stories. So irrigation, one of the pharmacist girls said yesterday, I think it might have been Billy, that in the Burdekin, irrigation's been one of the biggest problems with record keeping. And that threw me straight away when I took this on. How am I going to do this? What am I going to do? So Marion, myself, and a few others, we went out and we've pump flow tests. We've done that many pump flow tests, it's not funny. And growers realised after a while that we're not there to do it just so government can come and regulate it. We're there to try and help them out. We've had growers say, oh man, I didn't realise that pump used to pump this much last year, and then we've come back and done it again, oh, there's a bearing failed. We're trying to do this for their own benefit. That's what I'm trying to get through to the growers. This is for your own benefit.
So Irrigation come along, and I pushed hard for this because it's a damn good program. And every single grower that's signed up to Irrigation has passed BMP. No problem at all, got accreditation, no worries at all. It's a scheduling tool, it records everything, it uses live weather information. It is a model, but it's one of the best models I've ever seen. It's accurate, we ground tested it in a few places. This stuff here on the left is IoT, LoRaWAN system. BPS has recently put up quite a few gateways, they call them, radios, a bit like the Taggle guys have got as well. That system, we can cover just about the whole of the Burdekin, except Dalbeg, where I used to live. And growers can get on there, free of charge, get on there and just click on it, and they've got live weather station information in their area. This one over here, and I don't think Willie would mind me telling everyone, that's Willie's pump. Willie can get on there, on his phone, it's pumping 38 litres a second. It also has another area, which I didn't put on there because it's not that important, but it records every time it starts, every time it stops. This stuff is awesome technology, and it's not that expensive. We're very proud of this system, and it's really good because now we've got the weather stations interacting with Irrigation. So growers can actually log on to a weather station that's close to them, and it goes straight into Irrigation. Nutrient, weed, irrigation management plans. You know, everybody knows what they are. BPS do them, pharmacists do them, everybody does them. SRA have a weed management plan. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, it's a good one. Let's just use it. This is what I love. All the technology, I love technology. I'm a geek. My brother will even tell me that. But old school record keeping. Like my dad is 70. The growers that own these records are both BMP accredited. The guys on the left were 68 years old. My brother, 68, and the other one was 65. I sat down in a room with them, and I know, there's not a word of a lie, they would have yelled at me for 2 hours. What are you doing here, Terry? What are you trying to do? You want my records? You want this? You want this? I said, no, I don't. I'm here to try and help you. After I spoke to them, talked to them about things that they liked, went out and had a look around the paddock and everything, he came back out to me and he said, what do you need, Terry? I said, mate, all I'm chasing is if you got these records, you can become accredited. You know what? It's good. It's a good thing to do. And he brings a pile out like this from 1970-something. What do you want, he reckons? I said, mate, I only want this year. I said, I don't need all that. And he's like, oh, well, I'm awesome. He said, I love keeping records. I just love it. And he's bloody 70 or whatever it is. And I just think, this is cool. Because I love keeping records. I'm a bit of a freak. I'm a bit different. And so it doesn't worry me to see this. And I've even had the auditors come and say, that's awesome. That's really good. So we've got to cater for these people. These people aren't going to go to some of this automation and stuff. We know that. But this is really good stuff. Farmers are doing it. The farmers that do it for themselves are improving their businesses. These are some of the best growers in the Burdekin. Now, doesn't that tell you something? They're using the information year in, year out. It's only written in paper, but they're using it. They go back, they tell me, oh, you should see what we did last year. We did this stupid thing, and we wrote it all down, and we got a record of it. We got CCS, we got tonnages. Our own trials, they were doing their own trials years ago. So what I'd say to people is use the extension staff, use your local agronomists, use the BMP process to your advantage. There's plenty of things, everyone in the whole area, every area I've seen, there's people there. You need to get on the phone, you need to ring them. Like I said, I tell people to use me like a pimp. Just pimp me out. Just, ring me up, I'll do anything for you want me to do. I'll do a chemical, rate controller, I'll do a nutrient, I'll do it all for you, I'll show you how to do it. I don't care. If I don't know how to do it, I'll find out how to do it. Use the equipment that the industry has to potentially reduce your costs. I think that's really important. You know what? I've got a lot of friends in this room. I feel like they're friends anyway. Maybe when I turn around they're not. But anyway. But I can get on the phone and I can ring someone and I can have a piece of machinery there because if I explain to them what I'm trying to do with it, they'll do it. They'll say, yeah, all right, that's a good idea. Or I can hire it. Especially when you're trying to evolve or you're trying to go to a new system, it's really important. Don't go and spend a lot of money. There's machinery, there's equipment out there. Just ask the right people. So, growers that use guidance, we've heard about this already. Technology are recording while they're working. This is probably one of the things that it really gets to me, this, because I hear everyone say it's too hard and this and that. Brian and I, we got some of the first guidance systems in the Burdekin. I think Talbot, Dave Cox, a few of those guys had them first. And I think the first one we bought was 90 grand. It was really depressing. It was a little tiny box like this. We ended up with 5 of these things. So we started going auto steers straight, and we said, oh, that's good, it can go straight, it can go around corners. And then we got, you know what, I'm going to do boundary layers. I'll put boundary layers in it. We did all that. You know what, when we plant, why don't we put all the varieties in there and give them a different colour so it creates a map as we go along. We've got exact hectares, we've got everything. Yeah, let's do that. We put rate controllers on there. I think we had 3 rate controllers on one machine, all working, variable rate, different times, all at the same time, producing 3 different maps. Bang, 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 bang. Done. That was the most important thing. I rang Michael Munro one day from BMS and I said, how do I get this out of here? He goes, chuck a stick in the side of it, just pull it out, you'll get it. That was me training. I did it, I pulled it out and I made it work. Every time you turn one of those machines on, every single time it records a date. If you spend the time, 10 minutes, while the tractor's warming up to fill it out, you will have all your record keeping done. If you have a fertiliser rate controller and a spray rate controller, that is all your records right there, except for a few things like wind speed and stuff like that. It's really simple. What we want to get to, which Ian spoke about before, was automation. Like, we've got a few growers that are doing that. From that step, you put a modem on the damn thing and send it straight across into your computer. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do nothing. I sent a text to Dennis Posibon just a minute ago. He won't mind me saying. He loves it. Anyway, I sent a text to him and I said, Dennis, how long does it take you to record your information into your software recording program every night? Just give me a time, how long it takes. The message came back, doesn't take me any time, Jerry. I don't do anything. It goes across. It used to take me an hour every night. This is back before we could have a modem, before they could have that happening. This is what I used to do. So I was pretty anal, like I said before. I recorded everything. That's block, down to block. Could tell you every single price of everything. Fuel costs, labour costs. As a matter of fact, I remember telling Brian and Dad, the first thing we did was we put a fuel gauge on the tank. And I said, there's a book there. Every time you take something, you fill it up, you write the litres and the hours down. Because I said, if I'm going to record stuff, I'm going to do it properly. That was imperative. What can we do with it? So from there, all of a sudden, Dad wasn't real good at looking at all those numbers together. It didn't mean nothing to him. Put a pie chart in front of him. Man, this is cool. This is easy to see. And just for a little trick, I had another workshop not long ago, and I don't know if you can see, that's production income in the red. I did that on purpose to see people's reactions. They all thought we'd gone broke, but that's actually profit. So I just wanted to try something, because I'm nuts. Anyway, but this, so we'd make prescription maps. We had yield monitors. We had all that stuff, yield maps. We'd take it out, and this is all going back 2014, 2006 to 2014, got complete data. Be proud of what you accomplish. I really like this photo. These boys all got together. And actually, I'm really proud today. I look around the room here, and there are so many accredited growers here. And there's so many, the rest of the growers I can pretty much tell they're on their way. I'm working with them. It's really good. Continue to challenge yourself. Any business person should do it. I do it every day. On the left, that's the certificate accreditation. When I first took the job on, I got the very first guy my first person in the Burdekin accredited at industry standard. My second job was, I said to Matt Keeley and Mick Quirk, I said, so what's this above industry standard stuff? And he said, oh, well, that's where you go if you want to further yourself, if you think you're further down the line. I said, all right. We were still farming at the time. I uploaded over 100 documents for our farm. That farm is still, and I'm blowing my own horn a little bit, Brian Nyer, it's still the only farm in the whole of Australia that is accredited above industry standard. And it's probably the quickest one I've ever done, because we had it on the software program, and I said, oh, we need that, bang. Oh, we need that, bang. It was easy. I get frustrated when I hear, and I've heard it all day, we need to keep records for BMP, we need to keep records for Bonsucro. We need to keep records for ourselves. We don't need to keep records for BMP. Keep them for yourself, use them for your own business. You'll be surprised the changes that you'll make. You'll be surprised how good it makes you feel when you can hit a button and say, that was last year, look what I did this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Terry, and thanks, Mick, for that overview of the BMP. We are getting over time, so what I'd like to do is call up Rob Coco to give an overview of Bonsucro. So Rob is, again, probably known to nearly all of you, former Director of Reef Catchments and Bonsucro Director, to give an overview of Bonsucro. So, Rob, over to you.
Thanks, Andrew. So I'm mindful of time, but just before I get started, I just wanted to congratulate everyone for 10 years of your involvement, off and on, for those that are new, but you're welcome to the family that is Project Catalyst. So I'm humbled, I suppose, by where the program's gotten to from its early days when it started off, and perhaps to give a little bit of context, and hopefully it will indicate and showcase that, you know, from humble ideas and quite small thought processes, big things can happen. So take you back to 2008. We kicked off and developed a thing called, at that stage, early development of what was later called Reef Rescue Program. And in addition to that, a gentleman by the name of Cole Crichton and myself were actively thinking about, well, what additional programs can we do that are more focused around innovation and supporting innovation within the sugar industry. So armed with a few concepts, we hopped on a plane from Mackay, went to Canberra, had a meeting with the Department of Environment, and basically were told, yep, good idea, but thanks but no thanks, we're not that interested. So back to the airport, and Cole and I, sharing a beer, start to flesh out on a napkin about that size. Well, maybe we can do it with some corporate entities, and let's start to analyse that sort of opportunity. While we're doing that, there's a gentleman behind us who overheard our discussions and what we were pontificating in terms of potential ideas. And he said, I'm actually based in the US, currently doing some contract work for the Coca-Cola Foundation. I reckon what you guys have got, I reckon if we work together, we can sell that. Needless to say, 3 months later, first contract for Project Catalyst was basically initiated, and we started with a group of 19 farmers in Mackay to what we have here today. So just to, I suppose, reinforce any idea, any thoughts you have around innovation can go a long way. So anyway, in terms of Bonsucro, so Andrew's asked me just to give a bit of a brief overview. What is it? What does it do? What are the programs and so forth? Because for a lot of growers, it's relatively new and there's a lot of unknowns. So first and foremost, a bit like Catalyst, Bonsucro was really primarily a global network. It brings together a cross-section of stakeholders within the industry, so farmers, millers, agribusiness service providers, buyers of sugar, buyers of ethanol, retailers of sugar, and also civil society groups, whether they be social or environmental focused in the main. So which button do I press next? So I'm not going to go through all the words, and I've indicated to Andrew I'm happy for this slide presentation to be made available to everyone. But Bonsucro has a range of visions and missions which are really all about sustainable sugar production and supporting the full value chain, and I suppose more importantly integrating the value chain through a set of services and products, one of which is a certification tool which effectively allows for both growers and millers, either both individually or together, to be effectively certified to a global standard, where that global standard is then recognised formally by the end of the supply chain in terms of the sugar buyers. So, and it also commits the buyers to entering into what we call a chain of custody standard, which effectively allows for the mapping of sugar volumes at the purchaser's end, right back to a quantum of supply in terms of the number of suppliers off of a farm and the number of or tonnes of sugar coming from a mill. So the idea is to provide a completely transparent understanding of volumes of sugar that are effectively grown at a global standard. The other one is that the standard at the moment is a consistent standard for the globe. So it means that there is comparability across different regional locations in terms of sugar production. Obviously, one of the challenges with trying to set up a market standard is how do you effectively calibrate, for instance, a local standard produced in one country versus another one versus another one versus another one. So the idea here was to create a common standard. The other key difference between Bonsucro and a number of the other global standards across the world is effectively that Bonsucro's is what we call a metric standard. So it requires the capture and the provision of data as it relates to, for instance, nitrogen use, production, water use, carbon footprint, these sorts of things. So as opposed to being a compliance-based standard, which a number of other commodities are, where they say, you know, do you have a management plan? Yes. With Bonsucro, there's a requirement to actually supply metric data on, for instance, nitrogen inputs or phosphorus inputs and the like. So Bonsucro itself is comprised at the moment of I've got 480 there, it's now over 500 members from right across that supply chain standard. Currently 25% of the land area is basically under membership, and we have about 3 million tonnes of sugarcane that is actually certified as well through that production standard. And the standard itself is constantly evolving, and a bit like Project Catalyst, it's roughly been in operation in various forms for about 10 years. On the right is just an example of some of the companies that are currently members or have access to certified sugar volumes or are producing certified sugar volumes. Bonsucro, is, like most projects, has gone through evolution. So it started off as the Better Sugarcane Initiative, was very much focused on initially bringing stakeholders together to think about sustainability platforms and what might be doable. It then moved to being called Bonsucro, which is obviously better sugar, just in Latin-based derivatives. And we launched the certification scheme in 2011. And then there's been a more recent iteration in terms of a new strategy, which was launched in 2016, which is opening up other products and services and other, I suppose, initiatives and programs that Bonsucro undertakes outside of just certification. So Bonsucro's focus, if we look at the core programs, really revolves around 4 fundamental components to the program. One which we've spoken about is certification, and there are add-ons to that certification. So there's specific programs now for smallholders and smallholder engagement. So that's actually, from a global perspective, that's farm area under 25 hectares. Not overly applicable, obviously, in Australia, but globally, a large proportion of sugar production, you know, is in the vicinity of sort of 2 to 3 hectares at max from a lot of producers. There's then also other schemes, and it was interesting listening to Terry around, you know, the data. So Bonsucro recognises the ability to capture local data and information and upload that quickly into captured database systems that Bonsucro operates. So there is opportunity to be utilising things like BNP Smart Cane and other initiatives where you're collecting data and effectively upload some of that data into what we call certification fast track, which means that it obviously inherently quickens the process in regard to certification. The other one is benchmarking endorsement, and once again Mick touched on this briefly, where Bonsucro globally is in the early stages, I suppose, of developing up a process which allows Bonsucro to recognise local and regional standards. That involves benchmarking those local standards against Bonsucro's standard and its protocols, and then ultimately providing some form of market endorsement of those local standards. So Australia's in the early pilot phase in terms of assessing that, and that work will continue, I think, as was alluded to, over the next couple of months. Sustainability actions. So globally, Bonsucro actually has a number of key programs working with World Bank and other major donors around effectively grant programs, fostering innovation and fostering better production. So there's active programs in particularly in Africa and Asia, and to a limited extent also Central America at the moment, but with opportunity to grow those sort of opportunities for any region moving forward there. And then the other critical one is annual sustainability reporting. So with the metric data that's collected through the Bonsucro system, that data is then utilised to actually produce annual reports on regional performance and global performance in regard to sustainable sugar production, whether that be from an environmental perspective or in a number of other countries, social contexts around workers' health, child labour and those sorts of issues as an example. So that reporting is vitally important when we're trying to, I suppose, showcase both regional and global efforts around the actions that the sugar industry is undertaking as a whole. So I've sort of covered that in terms of most of those programs, but you'll see there that there is a range of programs and initiatives that are being undertaken, not just certification. So what is certification? People often ask. So within Bonsucro, there's really two components to certification. One is the metric standards that are established and set by an independent advisory body, basically, to Bonsucro for both the farming and the milling production side of the sugar industry. And then there's what we call a chain of custody certification standard, which is effectively the mapping of beyond the mill and the direct linkage of volumes to purchase by end buyers, and then ultimately the sale of that sugar to be able to capture the full supply chain, I suppose, transparency in terms of that sustainability. So as I said earlier, the standard itself is metric-based as opposed to compliance-based. It has a continual improvement or continuous improvement-based methodology built into it. The idea is that at any given point in time, the focus is on continuing improvement. So even if you don't meet all the aspects of the standard, providing you meet some of the core components, and even if you don't meet some of the non-core components, you can still be accredited, so long as you're on a path of continuous improvement in terms of the overall activities. The other key component is the standard itself is reviewed generally every 3 to 4 years by a technical advisory group, and the processes around auditing and all the rest of it are once again aligned to what we call ICL global standards of protocols around auditing process, and that effectively means there's quality control programs that audit the auditors and effectively ensure that data is being supplied and is accurate, as opposed to, or in addition to, farms and mills themselves being audited. The 6 principles of the certification standard are fairly, I suppose, basic, and there's a whole range of questions that relate to each of those. But the critical ones are around obeying any local laws that exist, or any where there are no local laws present for key issues, then there is a default to particularly global-based laws around, particularly around human management or human resource management and environmental management and the like. As I said, respecting human rights, managing efficiency, sustainability, biodiversity, continuously improve, and the last one actually relates to particularly to ethanol-based production. So there's a requirement under current arrangements for ethanol production and supply into the EU that it has to meet what we call the Renewable Energy Directive targets that are set within the EU in particular, So in order to help facilitate that, the Bonsucro standard's been effectively calibrated to those requirements. And if you do Bonsucro, it means you have access, I suppose, easier sustainability sales and access into the EU for biofuels. So the focus for Project Catalyst has been that on successive Project Catalyst forums, we've been, I suppose, approached by the growers around how do we improve recognition of the efforts that you undertake, not just in us recognising you, but external parties recognising your efforts and your activities. So one of the opportunities subject to your interest is that Project Catalyst may be able to broker and actually put in place a process where we can support Project Catalyst growers to be effectively accredited to the Bonsucro standard if you're not already. At the same time, there's also an ability to effectively support, once again, subject to your interest, your completion of the BMP accreditation process and become BMP accredited at the same time as well in terms of that process. So the purpose of really the discussions in terms of where we are right now is to put that option out there. It's purely voluntary. It's really up to the interest of you as the growers. But from a Project Catalyst sense, we give I suppose, a commitment to trying to support that opportunity, subject to there being enough interest from the producers to want to do it. As of June, July this year, Project Bonsucro will actually allow for independent grower certification through to the grower standard. Prior, it was basically linked to both grower and mill being jointly effectively certified in terms of volumes. After much demand, particularly out of South Africa and Brazil, that arrangement will cater for a little bit more flexibility and allow for growers just to do the farm bit and effectively be accredited to that farm component should there be an interest. I've touched on the BMP Smart Cane. As I said, the other opportunity is to provide potentially a similar level of support, once again, subject to your interest in terms of while we're doing Bonsucro certification, there's also an opportunity to do the BMP component as well. As I said, from our end, there's some logistics that we have to work out in terms of how we support that. But at this early stage, it's really about gaining some level of general interest from you to do that. Hence the survey questions. So if you haven't filled out that simple survey, which actually asks questions around your interest to do that, then we'd encourage you to do so. If you have any further queries about Bonsucro, by all means get onto the website. It's fairly reasonable in terms of explaining the operations. And I'm happy to also take any direct calls or emails or whatever the case may be if you have any queries or questions. So, Andrew, I'll leave it at that.
Great, thank you very much, Rob. We are fallen completely off the rails time-wise. We're 20 minutes over schedule. What I suggest is we were going to have a discussion session. What I think we do is probably hold that over until after afternoon tea. But in the interim, feel free to talk with Terry, Mick, Rob, and Matt about what you've seen presented. So please join me with me again to thank our presenters who have given us an update on the BMP and Bonsucro. I'd now like just to hand back to Sally with a couple of housekeeping matters.